name's Jacqueline Benedetto. I am the curator at Peace Gallery North in Fort St. John. We've gathered a number of artists from the community up here who are involved with the gallery, the Spinners and Weavers Guild, sculptors, painters, and they're sharing today some of their experiences with our local arts community. Heidi is a member of the North Peace Spinners and Weavers Guild. She's offering a studio tour and some information about the North Peace Spinners and Weavers Guild.
Hi, my name is Heidi. I'm president of the North Peace Spinners and Weavers Guild in Fort St. John, BC. It's a group of people all ages that share a love of fiber arts. So we've got people who do weaving, spinning, felting, tapestry, of course lots of crocheting and knitting, but primarily our love of natural fibers. So we're a big supporter of local sheep producers. We know some llama farms as well. Our members are really into using local and native plants for hand dyeing. We just love to get together and try different things, hold workshops. We've got a lot of experience, a lot of talent within this group, so it's a wonderful group to be a part of and learn from. Having that friendship and being able to get together with people who have experience has just made a world of difference for me. I had actually first met the Guild when they were putting on a demonstration in town, and so met the ladies, got to see what they were doing, and it just impressed me so much that I joined the group, and didn't take long before I got my own loom and my own wheel, and now serving time as president of the group. So yeah, I think being a part of an actual guild is very important. I think the very first thing that drew me to the craft was the idea of it being so sustainable, I guess. Learning more about where our fabric for all sorts of things, where it comes from, and being able to see that process, like kind of like how farm to table is for food. This is like fleece to fabric. It's our 45th anniversary this year, so that's pretty exciting. One thing that I found pretty amazing and it was a testament to the love that people have for this group, even during the COVID years where we couldn't meet in person, we had still a pretty strong membership, which is a really huge deal when you think about the thing that kind of draws us together is, you know, the physical, like the touch, the feel, the smell, the being together. So wanting to still hold on to that in any way that we could, I think it was a pretty big deal for a lot of our members to download the Zoom app and to figure out how to meet virtually. So we were really happy when we were able to start slowly coming back into the studio at the same time as other people, and now be able to be out in the community for different events. I feel really proud of us that we made it through that, because it's a pretty important, I feel we're a pretty important member of the Arts Council here in Fort St. John, and we represent really the regional district because we have members that live outside of the city. Yeah, this being able to have a space here, I think that there are a lot of groups out in the world, within even BC, that don't have a physical space that they can meet. So maybe they, you know, share an interest and they get together in people's homes or, you know, at different locations. But to actually have a studio space, albeit a small one, we still feel very fortunate that we have this. Yeah, all ages and stages are welcome to be members. We try to always incorporate some sort of a children's demo or children's art project when we're out in the community, just to engage even the youngest people in this old technology. How old is kind of new again. I just can't speak highly enough about this group and their friendship and their artistic expertise.
Next up we have Samantha Wigglesworth. She's a local artist and art student who has shown exhibits at Peace Gallery North, including her recent exhibit entitled Spectrum.
I am a painter and Bachelor degree of Fine Arts student at UFE. I'm mainly a portrait painter in my most recent years. I paint typically large scale. My comfortable size is about 2 foot by 3 foot. Deal mostly in acrylic with kind of 3D aspects. You know, glued on embellishments, little earrings, things like that to have like a tactile degree to them. In the most recent years, it has drastically changed for the better. And I'm so excited to be part of that change. When I was growing up, it was a lot of just one kind of art. It was mainly just landscapes. No hate to landscapes, but when it's the only thing you see, you kind of get a little bit bored of it. And we kind of didn't really have much art culture. You know, as a queer portrait artist, my stuff kind of shook things up a little bit here. And the more and more I see in the more recent years, just more and more venturing out into different things, and it's amazing. In June of 2021, I did my first ever gallery show, which is my show called Spectrum. You can see a couple of them behind me. It's a total of series of 10 works portraying different people and what different genders and sexualities can look like. So not only was it a show to represent queer people to a very kind of redneck area, but also portraits, which is not something you see here a lot of, especially in a large scale show. And I wanted it to be that representation I never saw growing up. The thing is, I painted this series specifically for this town because it's redneck and because of the direct impact I wanted it to have. You know, we were worried about backlash. There wasn't really a lot, which I was very fortunate about, but I wanted it for the people who needed to see it to be able to see it. My professor used to make jokes with me at university because I think in series of works. I don't just think of one, I think of 10. You know, so I get this idea stuck in my head and I just have to do it over and over and over again, which worked out perfect for Spectrum. So as soon as I have an idea and a portrait that matches, I'm already in my studio. I'm projecting my image so I can, you know, trace out the outline of the face. And I'm just hitting the ground running, painting backgrounds, painting, you know, the portrait itself, and yeah, kind of goes from there.
Next up, we have Ovian Castrillo-Hill. She is the cultural director with the North Peace Filipino-Canadian Society, and she's also an amazing proponent in our community for creating opportunities for new artists and encouraging community gathering.
My name is Ovian Castrillo-Hill. I'm an artist, sculptor, and author. I create modern sculptures. I'm an abstract expressionist. I create modern sculptures that started in my home country in the Philippines. I'm highly influenced by the work of my late father, Eduardo Castrillo, who has a lot of public and monumental sized art in the Philippines. So being that I grew up witnessing the kind of work that he did, it definitely influenced my palette and my sense of aesthetics and my sense of storytelling. So like him, I do cut and weld brass. I work with stainless steel, wood, and I also experiment with other plastics. But here in Fort St. John, being that I don't really have a full-on studio like I do in the Philippines, I do my art through, mostly I use local wood. I put some metals in them, but I also paint in acrylic. I came to the gallery and asked if we could have gallery space. I asked them in 2017, and they said that they were booked all the way up to 2018. But luckily, even from then, they were able to pencil us in for 2019. So that was the very first ex situ Filipino-Canadian Artists in Fort St. John show. So it's now 4 years running that the Filipino-Canadian creatives and artists here in Fort St. John are able to showcase our work, and that's largely through the community support. On a personal level, it's very rewarding in that the goal of Exitu really is to give the Filipino Canadians in town an opportunity to share their work. As you know, many people may not know the talents of the Filipino community, because usually we're kind of pigeonholed into, say, the service industries because of the kinds of migrations and programs that lead people to Fort St. John. The Filipinos who do come here usually are in the service industries. The goal really was for the Filipino Canadians to be seen in a more kind of holistic way, that we can't just be defined by the work we do. There are many other things that we can do. Like for instance, like some Filipinos never really even had a chance to go to the gallery. So by having the show, then they're meeting other locals who are involved in the humanities. Art is a language. So for me, other than verbal language, you know, or physical language, the way one can express themselves is through the things that they create. So the process for me is always having a message. If there's something that I want to say, if there's something that I want to convey, that is visual, I put those things together and create my art. The process is, sometimes it's just an idea, sometimes it's something I saw on TV, sometimes it's like a lyric from a song that resonates with me. Then, you know, I feel an impetus to share my views about that particular topic. Sometimes the idea itself leads me to the medium that I'm going to use. Sometimes the idea leads me to the size that it's going to be. But always, it's about something that's in my spirit that I'd like to share. As part of the art show in 2019, there was a young man, I think he was 13 at that time. His name is JC Santa Maria. And I think one of the best results or effects of having the Exitu show is that the young artists like JC have had a taste of what it's like to be an artist. It's these things that I think that are most valuable for us, for me in this community. It's that the Filipino Canadian or immigrant children who may not have thought that there could possibly be value in having a profession in the arts. I mean, you'd have to remember that in the Philippines is not a very wealthy country, so most people, when they go to school, art is not the first, you know, it's not the kind of profession that their parents kind of push them to take. So the fact that we are in Canada, that is a testament to the openness and the opportunities that are available to the immigrants. And I believe that, speaking on behalf of the artists, we are very grateful to our new home to have this opportunity.
Next up, we have Oliver. He is the theater manager at the North Peace Cultural Center, as well as a member of the Stage North Theater Society.
My name's Oliver Hackmeister, and my role is operations manager for the North Peace Cultural Society. So the operations manager position was created after a change in management and board about 7 or 8 years ago. And I kind of took on whatever duties needed to be done, booking touring artists for the theater, but also booking the theater for the local community acts, the theater societies, the dance groups, that sort of thing. So I've seen a lot of different things. I've seen a lot of shows on stage. I've seen things that shouldn't happen, and so I've learned from that, and I've seen amazing things happen, and I've learned from that as well. So I try to take the best and the worst and find ways to make everything a little bit better. So one of the things that is great about working here is we have a really professional setup of the theater, but we're so far removed from, let's say, Vancouver or any of the larger centers, that we can bring in some touring acts to show the locals what can be done. But when we have amazing local talent, they can get up on stage and show their capacity and their talents to the community at large. And in some cases, they can enter competitions and actually be recognized from how they've developed here as an artist at some of the larger centers. So depending on what you're looking to do, you can sign up with Stage North Theatre Society here in Fort St. John. You can join one of the dance studios and actually take some dance lessons if you're interested in getting up on stage. You can take piano lessons from one of the many piano teachers in town, or we also have a violin and cello teacher. Those are a number of different ways. There are other ways. Many times we'll actually have the School District 60 public speaking contest on stage. And that's another way to just get over your fear of public speaking. If there's an interest in performing, but you've got stage fright or you're frightened a little bit, start with backstage. Start helping out backstage, like helping build a set or run props in blackouts for a theater company. Or help do costume changes for dance groups. Because being involved in theater is not just what happens on stage, it's what happens with everyone around it. And sometimes you'll see it enough that you'll be like, oh yeah, this isn't that scary, I can do that. Until you step out on stage and then it's scary again, and that's good because you can use that energy, the energy that comes from being frightened, you can use that on stage and become a better actor or a better dancer or whatever, a better musician. So theater as an art form is actually kind of fun and scary at the same time. I've worked with the local theater company, Stage North Theatre Society, and as a director and as a designer, and you can do the same show 5-6 times in a row and have different audiences every night and different times when they'll laugh and different times when they'll react to what's happening on stage. And it's a different show every single night. Where when you watch a movie, it's the same movie every single time. Maybe you'll pick out new things out of the movie, but it's the same movie. Whereas when you see something live on stage and live in theater, and it could be theater, it could be dance, it could be a live music performance. It's different every single night. The stories will change a little bit, the reactions will change. Sometimes it's actually the interactions between the artists and the audience that causes the change. And it's just amazing to watch, just to see that live interaction and that relationship between the audience and the performers.
Next up, we have Frances Obi. She is a master of pastels and recently has ventured into acrylics as well, another artist who recently had an exhibit with Peace Gallery North entitled Confluence.
I've lived here for the past 8 years, came from Ontario, and since arriving here, this art gallery, to start with, has been instrumental in helping me put my work out there, helping me in terms of having a place to show, a place to teach. I've been involved in group shows and solo shows here for the past 8 years. So it's been a wonderful, supportive kind of community. The community here, the arts community here, it is absolutely wonderful. It's a network of organizations, art galleries, and individuals that all come together. And there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of commitment from all aspects of that network. And I'm really happy to have been a part of it. I enjoyed this gallery in particular as a place to put across my art, show my art. My concepts always start with a visit to a region that I find inspiring. For example, the last area that I focused on was Atlan Lake, northwestern BC. It's got to be a landscape that has soul, that speaks to me in some subjective manner, that's emotionally evocative in some way. And I certainly found that at Atwin Lake. It resulted in a whole series of paintings. From the time that I get an idea, well, in the region at Atwin Lake, I used to do a lot of sketching. I would take photos. And to begin with, I didn't really know where it was going to go. It was much later that the ideas arose, the themes. Themes do arise, and then from there, I work from the sketches, the photos. I look for composition, I look for design, and I look for ways to interpret that subjective aspect of the landscape. And from there, the paintings evolve. It comes back to the name of my last show, which was Confluence. Confluence, of course, means connections. It was largely about our connection with landscape, our connection with our environment, and how that environment speaks to us. And that often happens through rhythms, patterns, light, color. And so that's the whole evolutionary process, is interpreting that in the paintings. So the subjective landscape is mainly how the landscape makes us feel, how it draws us in, makes us a part of it. I was trying to put across the idea that we aren't separate from our environment. We're very much a part of it. And going to places that are a little more remote, a little more out of the way, like Atwin Lake, really helps with getting that feeling of being part of what's around you, part of the natural world. You see, I didn't start seriously practicing my art till fairly late in life, so that's one challenge right there. I was involved in business and family, raising family. So since I've been here, I'm just sort of coming into starting an art career at the same time that a lot of people are retiring. So that's a challenge in itself, but I try not to think about it. Apart from that, there's getting accepted by communities outside of this region can be a challenge. I think that's for anyone, no matter how old they are. If any artists from this region want to show, for example, in Vancouver, Edmonton, any of the larger centers, that can be a challenge, getting accepted in those communities.
Next up, we have Haley Bissett. She is an interdisciplinary artist as well as the executive director of the Peace Liard Regional Arts Council. She also is a program coordinator for the Dawson Creek Art Gallery.
My name is Haley Bassett. I'm an interdisciplinary artist, and I'm also the executive director of the Peace Liard Regional Arts Council. I use a variety of mediums like painting, woodworking, natural materials, found objects, beadwork, installation, ceramics sometimes, just a little bit of everything except printmaking. A lot of what I do with my artwork is process my experiences. A lot of the times traumatic experiences, things that you need dealt with, right? And I found it's helpful to delve into one's family history, one's cultural background, and that history. So I draw a lot of inspiration from my Métis background and my Eastern European roots. So I tend to blend traditional art forms from both those sides. So I use Métis beadwork and also Russian Matryoshka dolls and floral folk motifs in my work in kind of a blend. So it's kind of about understanding larger histories to contextualize my own story and placing that into a larger narrative. So the one on the wall, it's called Self-Portrait 2 years later, so 2 years after a traumatic incident. And it's about So sometimes, like what I was working through with that piece, sometimes when something very difficult happens to you, like your own inner monologue, your own mental space becomes like a bit of a minefield. And sometimes your own body is something that you want to avoid. So I took the idea of the self-portrait, which I painted this from life, so I was using a mirror as a reference. And I started out very traditional self-portrait, just oil. And then I pushed it back by going over it with that kind of a deep midnight blue layer to sort of like push back the individual in the painting. And I sort of obscured it with these cultural motifs. So the blue is a reference to like blue velvet or stroud that is used in traditional Métis beadwork. And I also have the rose motifs just beaded directly onto the canvas. And also like the crescent moon shape and like the eyes is like, refers to Russian matryoshka dolls, nesting dolls. So it's sort of about retreating into a cultural identity and having that sort of be a safe space when everything else is sort of chaotic and in turmoil. So yeah, I always knew I wanted to be an artist since I was like 5. And since that time, I was constantly told that it was an impossible dream, don't even bother, you'll never make a living. You know, how are you gonna like provide for yourself? And it was just very much frowned upon. And I didn't have a lot of access to like museums, galleries, like even the art gallery in Dawson I wasn't really involved with because I lived like on a farm like quite a ways out of town, so I didn't have a chance to visit galleries often, so didn't have a lot of exposure, and that meant I had very narrow ideas of what art really was, and also what was possible in the art world. I had no idea. Until I, after working in the oil and gas industry for 5 years, I saved up enough money to go to Italy, and I took an intensive painting and drawing course there. And I happened to meet like a young, successful contemporary artist, and his existence basically blew my mind and shook my whole worldview. And after that, I resolved to go to art school. And so I went to Emily Carr University when I got back. So, turned my whole world around.
Thank you so much for watching today and taking a moment to delve into the minds of our wonderful artists up here. If you would like to learn more about the gallery, you can check us out on social media, or if you are in town, feel more than welcome to come by, check out the gallery yourself in person. We do have exhibit openings once a month, and we're very welcoming to new artists as well. So if you're an artist in the region and you'd like to get in touch, come say hey.